How do you show brand personality beyond just a static logo? Because let's be honest, sometimes logos on their own are pretty boring. And this is coming from someone who designs logos. This is a problem that I didn't even realize I was facing in many of my designs. The logos are good, but they don't show much personality. You don't get a sense of who the brand is, what they stand for, where they're coming from, or what their interests are. So, what's the solution? This is the book that helped me realize that my designs had this problem. I was reading through it when I came to this section about badges. Now, badges are something that I've never really thought about. I've always thought that they were outdated or too old fashioned. They make a brand feel vintage. It feels more like a 19th century design trend rather than a 21st century thing. But reading this chapter really opened my mind to new possibilities. Here's a couple of lines that stood out to me. Badges are an opportunity to tell your brand's story, and you can infuse your brand with memorability. I thought this was really cool. The badges for the city of Shoreview also represent the different functions of whatever the badge is placed on. So if something has the City of Shoreview badge, it's different from something that has a Shoreview badge. The City of Shoreview represents something official, like an official vehicle or an official building, something like that. So it provides clarity or an explanation of its function. So with this, I got really inspired to start creating badges for my studio. The goal was to create at least 3 badges that I really liked that I could use somewhere in my studio. The first thing I did was write a big list of content that I could include in my badge. This badge is an opportunity to share some of my interests and history in a rather unique form. And so by writing this list and doing all of the thinking beforehand, I don't have to come up with what to say while I'm sketching. It allows me to focus on the sketches and for the creativity to flow. So here are my actual sketches. Now these sketches are rough and they're meant to be used more as a proof of concept. If something's not working here in the sketch phase, then it's probably definitely not going to work in vector form. And you'll see how some of these sketches translate into the end result. But here are all of the sketches that I did for this project. This is the first badge that I made on the computer. I designed it in color from the get-go, and honestly, I think they're pretty bad. The established date is too thin and hard to read. My next iteration of this badge I started in black and white, and I added color later. This is a much better way to work because if something doesn't work in black and white, it's definitely not going to work in color. So these badges turned out much better because of that, but I don't love them. Now I said I wanted to come up with 3, but there's actually 5 that I came up with that I really liked. I might narrow this down in the future to back to 3, but I have 5 that I do like. Now, if you really wanted to pixel peep, you'll find that some of these elements are not perfectly centered. This is called optical alignment. Sometimes as designers we have to stray from technical perfection in order to make something look correct. Because if I had an element in the center where it should be, technically speaking, it would look off. That's why things like the Google logo or the Nintendo Switch logo are actually not perfectly centered or perfect shapes because it wouldn't look good if it was technically perfect. This is actually an indicator of good design. So I want to show you how sketching helped me refine some of the ideas that ended up in the final badge. I had the idea to use a cursor and a pencil to symbolize my design process. I created this pencil icon on the computer first. When I used it in a couple of badges, I realized that it was way too complex. So I opened up my notebook and cut away more and more of the design until I got down to what I thought was the simplest form of this icon. I replicated it in my design program and it resulted in a much more readable pencil icon. The next thing to do is add color, and in my opinion, badges don't have to strictly adhere to the brand colors. Take one of these badges for example. It kind of looks like an Arizona state flag. Initially, I filled it with my brand colors, but then after looking at it for a while, I thought it would make more sense to just use the Arizona state flag colors instead. So I switched. And that small shift changed the whole feel. One of my favorite badges is this one. I used the pencils to create mountain shapes because I love the mountains. And then using this green color made more sense than using my on-brand blue. So it's okay to stray from using brand colors in order to tell a better story. And honestly, this project had me reconsidering some of my preconceived notions around color and branding, but that's a topic for a different video. There's still plenty of branding with my name and logo. Here are the initial concepts versus the final versions. You can see how the structure improved and how the color choices locked in to give each badge its own identity while staying true to the brand. It is so much smoother when you get that balance right. I really like how these turned out, and I'll start looking for places to use these in my studio. I learned a lot about visual storytelling through this project, and I'm totally convinced that badges allow you to do things that standard lockups don't. Lockups are still important, and you can see how I balanced my lockup in this video on screen. So thanks for watching. Peace out.